An entitled Karen demands that I allow her to use my gazebo on my property so that she can host a photo shoot. And even though I told her no and demanded that she get off my property, she refused to listen, claiming that I was being unreasonable and that I needed to share my property with her. Here's what happened. Okay, so I rent a place along a river in Canada every year in August for 10 to 14 days. My rental includes exclusive use of a cabin, a private deck with a hot tub, and a furnished gazebo. And mine is the only rental with a gazebo. Just east of my place is another smaller cabin with just a dock and a hot tub. Now, I get back from a quick grocery shopping expedition, and as I'm unpacking my car, a young woman walks over and climbs on my deck. She has obviously either just showered or just gotten out of the hot tub, and she's sitting there in a bathrobe. She then looks at me and says, "Hi, I just wanted to stop by and tell you that me and my partner will be doing a photo shoot in the gazebo tomorrow morning. Just letting you know as a courtesy, since we will be moving your boats out for the photo shoot. Don't worry, we will put them back." Now, for reference, the gazebo is attached to the deck, which surrounds my rental cabin. And my kayaks are in the gazebo when rain is forecast. And I did that for good reason because it's been raining off and on all day. Now, to reiterate, I have exclusive use of the entire area, and no one from the other rentals are supposed to come near my area. And this info is part of the owner's orientation for all new arrivals. I'm standing at my cabin door with grocery bags in my hands, absolutely dumbfounded that she thinks she can take over the gazebo that is part of my rental. She then says to me, "So are you staying here alone, or do you have your husband and kids with you? Do you own the cabin? I mean, how much does it cost? How long have you been here in the first place?" She also says this all very quickly with no pauses for an answer. So I just look at her and I say, "You are in my private space and I need you to leave." This entitled Karen then looks at me and tries to say, "Oh, I was just being friendly." But I stop her right then and there. I say to her, "No, you are intruding on my space and invading my privacy. Your questions are intrusive and very creepy. You will not be doing a photo shoot tomorrow or anytime in my gazebo. Please leave right now." This entitled Karen then gives me an attitude. She says to me, "No need to get so snippy. We are doing the photo shoot tomorrow, so you better not interfere. Given your attitude, I think it's best that you head into town by 8 o'clock and don't come back before 2. But when I heard that, I was not backing down. I looked at her and I said, "That is not happening. Get off my deck and get out of my space right now." The entitled Karen then stomps her foot and says, "You are being unreasonable. You're the only one with a gazebo. You need to share it." But I refused to listen any further, so I told her, "No, I don't, and you need to leave now." I then went into the cabin, locked the door, and I messaged the owner immediately. I've been renting here for years, and the owner and I have become really good friends. Well, to make a long story short, they definitely didn't show up for their photo shoot, and the owner had to actually chase them out of the rental the next morning, as they were still in bed an hour past checkout time. But I'm honestly still blown away by this Karen's entitlement, especially with her trying to bark orders at me over something that she clearly had no right to try and claim. Yeah, people who act like this, who are like, "Oh my god, you're being unreasonable. We're going to do this and you need to leave." Like, that kind of attitude is so intrusive, it's not even funny. And what was the deal with her being like, "Ooh, are you alone? Who's with you? How long are you gonna stay here? How much money did it cost to buy this place?" Like, either she really thought she was gonna get some kind of like photo shoot on your property that you were renting, or she was casing the joint and thinking about robbing you. Like, who in their right mind would act like that and be so demanding over something they don't own? But I really love how the original poster handled the situation. They didn't take this sitting down, and they definitely told this Karen to get lost, because the way she acted was completely inappropriate, and she had no right to make these kind of demands out of you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen screams at me when I was 12 years old, complaining that I didn't give up my seat so that she could sit down. But despite the fact that I did actually in reality offer my seat to her, this entitled Karen still decided to embarrass me in front of literally everybody. And even to this day, I'm still disturbed by her entitled behavior. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, this happened when I was 12 years old, and at that point in my life, I was very shy and I hated confrontation. My family and I had to use the metro in my city during rush hour, and the station and the trains were so full that within seconds, the trains were impossible to fit into. So we had to let a few of them pass before managing to even get on one. I got lucky and I managed to find a seat to sit in. Keep in mind that there were priority seats in the train, which were seats that you had to give up for pregnant women, disabled people, or the elderly, but I was not sitting in one of them. Well, in walks the entitled Karen of this story and her 2 minions, and all of these women are roughly in their 60s. A couple minutes pass and I notice her whispering to her minions while looking disgusted pointed over at me in a horribly exaggerated and obvious way, with her hand shielding her mouth from me and everything. So naturally, I picked up on the fact that she was talking about me, and I also guessed that she wanted to sit in my seat, as I couldn't think of any other reason that she would do that. I then sheepishly offered up my seat, as I didn't want to cause any kind of trouble. Upon hearing my offer, she conspicuously turned her back to me, so I'm pretty sure she just ignored me, so I just kept sitting and minding my own business. She continues whispering about me for a bit, and eventually she turns to me and starts yelling and berating me, claiming that I didn't offer up my seat to her when I literally did not even 3 minutes earlier. She said to me, "I'm old, you're young, you can stand, and I need to sit." I tried politely explaining that I had already offered my seat, and perhaps she just didn't hear me, but she cut me off and didn't give me a chance to speak between all of her demonic screeching. Throughout this whole ordeal, minion number 1 was standing behind her with her arms crossed, like the sidekick of a mean popular girl in a Netflix movie. But minion number 2 had more shame and looked a bit embarrassed, but still didn't think to tell the Karen not to yell at a literal child over something so insignificant. I then tried offering my seat to her again, just for her to huff and puff and raise her head and say no, and she said this in such an indignant way. So after all this shrieking, she didn't even take the stupid seat. She then continued on some stupid tangent about how young people don't respect their elders, and I was feeling petrified the whole time because I just didn't know how to deal with the situation, and I was also scared that I was being yelled at by some stranger. A man sitting a few seats down told her to shut up and leave me alone after about 30 seconds of her yapping, to which she reluctantly walked away, and I am still grateful for him to this day. Keep in mind there were plenty of other people sitting down, some in the priority seats, and yet she actively chose to target a 12-year-old who was sitting in a regular seat. If she really needed to sit down, all she had to do was to nicely ask someone in a priority seat to give up their seat for her, and if they needed it, she could have just asked someone else politely. She didn't look elderly enough for anyone to assume that she would have trouble standing, not to mention that I already offered my seat. But I'm honestly so sick of entitled people like this, because the way she treated me was truly awful. Yeah, that Karen was literally trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. She literally was just being performative the entire time. She wasn't actually upset that you took her seat. She just wanted to make some weird point, and you just so happen to be the closest scapegoat to possibly take her wrath. So for what it's worth, I'm really sorry this happened to you when you were 12 years old, because the way she treated you was completely disrespectful. Am I the jerk for calling out my family for keeping the truth from me for years that my mom isn't actually my biological mother? Here's what happened. So I'm a 17-year-old male, and in March, I learned that my mom isn't my biological mom, but she is in fact my stepmom, and that my brother and sister are my step-siblings. I was only 1 year old when my parents got married, so I don't remember a time before, and my biological mom doesn't want to know me, which means I never grew up with 2 moms or anything like that. I always assumed that I was their biological kid. They basically said I was, and I thought my siblings were blood siblings as well. I knew they didn't call dad their dad, so I figured half siblings, but still siblings. And this is why growing up, I was so confused about why they hated me. They would get so mad at me for talking to them or breathing near them. They used to fight to not sit next to me at dinner and fight over who would sit next to me in the car. They would say I wasn't their brother, but never answered why. And the only answer I would get was that I was pathetic and I was gross. They would also kick me out of the TV and game room because I wasn't allowed in there if they wanted to do something, and I was just so confused all the time. I looked up to them and so badly wanted them to be like older siblings my friends had, or like my friends were with younger siblings. I mean, I really cried about it. I asked my parents why, while also asking my grandparents and extended family why, and nobody ever told me the truth. I also never got why they hated my dad so much, though they never seemed to hate him as much as me. This did a number on the younger version of me. I still have some hangups from wanting my siblings to love me, and being rejected every time, and being treated like they would catch something from sitting next to me. I started to question stuff when I needed my birth certificate, and my parents wanted to bring it to school for me. So I searched it out and I found it, and I saw my dad's name, but I didn't see my mom's on there at all. So I asked my parents, and they finally admitted that I was my mom's stepson and my sibling's stepbrother, and that they had not liked that and didn't like my dad. They said they had wanted me to love them so it would soften their hearts and let them accept me as a brother. Well, my family didn't like me saying that my parents had lied, and they didn't like me being mad about it. They think I'm being unfair. They mentioned it a few times, but when they were over at our house a few days ago, I kind of lost it and called them out for lying too, and for keeping the truth from me for so long. I told them everyone left me in the dark and looking like an idiot about what my step siblings had meant, but they said I expected too much from them. So am I the jerk in this situation? situation because right now I really don't know what to do. No, there's no way this is okay. This is a conversation, in my opinion, that should have happened a long time ago. Like, I can't imagine spending my entire childhood wondering why my siblings hate me and wondering why my family's acting so weird about what's going on, only to then find out that my mom is not actually my mom and that my siblings who clearly hate me are just step-siblings. Like, that all must be so hard to handle, and I'm so sorry to the original poster. But for your extended family to be like, oh, you expected too much from us, you're overreacting and you're being unfair. Like, that garbage does not stand in my opinion, and the fact that they would try to turn this on you shows exactly the kind of people they really are. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation, because what you're experiencing right now is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for not letting my neighbor back in, who constantly locks herself out of our apartment building and then bangs on my window and buzzes my apartment, demanding that I let her back in? But despite the fact that I don't know this woman and that I've told her to stop doing this to me, she still feels entitled to bother me at all hours of the night. And right now, I don't know if I'm in the wrong or not, because this behavior is truly obnoxious. Here's what happened. So I live in an apartment block, and to access the property after 8 o'clock, you must carry your front door key with you, and we were all told this prior to moving in. A tenant has moved in downstairs, and she leaves the back door unlocked to allow herself to come and go without taking her key. She isn't supposed to do this, and she has been told multiple times to take her front door key in case the door locks, which she has just completely ignored. So now she has started treating me like a literal doorman, knocking loudly on my windows and repeatedly buzzing my apartment to try and get me to open the door for her. This is a daily thing, by the way, and it riles up my dog every single time, and it always occurs after 9 o'clock p.m. I have let her in twice in good faith, then told her the third time to take her key and that I will no longer be answering. Well, she decided to go out with her dog this evening, and again, she didn't bother to take her key. When she started buzzing and knocking on my windows loudly, I shut off my buzzer and I gave my dog a treat and I just closed the doors, deciding to ignore her and continue watching my movie instead. Now, this is where I could be the jerk. It's dark out at the moment, and it's very late, and she's outside by herself with her dog, and she's been out there for about 45 minutes, and we also live in a shady area. It's not dangerous, but definitely not pleasant at night. She has been sat outside on the doorstep on her phone, angrily ranting about me to her friends, like I'm her dad or something like that. But the thing is, I don't know this woman outside of her treating me like a doorman. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk for not letting her in, and honestly, I think you're letting her off a little too easy. If I was in your shoes and she started doing that to me, especially after I told her to stop more than one time, then for starters, I would report her to the building management itself, and then I would call the police and be like, yeah, there's a lady banging on my windows to get in the building, because all of this is incredibly inappropriate. You are not responsible for her getting locked out. I would understand if this was like an occasional thing, but the fact that she does this almost on purpose and thinks that she can boss you around just to try and get what she wants, that in my opinion is incredibly entitled and so inappropriate. And the thing is, if she really did want to get back in the building, she could call the building management herself and get this taken care of. She could tell them that she's locked out, and then someone would show up even if it took a while to let her back in. So in essence, this is definitely not your problem. And if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever let her back in the building, especially because it seems that she does this on purpose. Am I the jerk for refusing to be the designated driver for a new girl in our friend group after she cussed me out and screamed at me the last time I gave her a ride? Because right now, my friend group is split down the middle, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old male, and I met my friend group when I moved to Paris for my work around 8 years ago. For the sake of the story, we'll call them Laura, Anthony, and Julie. Now, when we go out, here's the deal. I'm the one with the driver's license, so I am the designated driver. I drive and pay for the gas and the parking, and everything related to the car, in exchange for 1 Coke per person. And during the night, if needed, I'll go with you to retrieve something in my car, such as your coat, your makeup, or whatever. When it's time to leave, I'll drive everyone to their place and walk them to their door while the others wait in the car. But the problem started a few weeks ago when we were already at the bar. When Anthony's new girlfriend, who we will call Marie, went to take a second or third round, I asked her to take me a Coke, and she asked me for my credit card. But before I could say anything, Anthony just said, "Come on, babe, I explained to you how it works. Don't make a scene." But she just replied by letting out a groan, and then she walked to the bar and came back with just her drink. I then just looked at Anthony, rolled my eyes, and I ordered myself a Coke, and then I moved on. Well, later that night, Laura came to ask for my car keys and not to come, stating that all the girls were going together. Now, reading between the lines, I understood that it was to get a feminine hygiene product or to get the first aid kit that I always have in my car. Well, a few minutes later, later, Marie came back charging at me and started screaming at me that I'm a weirdo, questioning why I have feminine hygiene products in my car and that she was right to not pay for my Coke since I'm a creep, while also calling me a freeloader and all this other stuff in the same tone. In fact, she created such a scene that we were all kicked out of the bar. While walking back to my car, Marie kept up her act, screaming insults and other names to me, all while fake crying in the process. So I snapped at her, and I told her, okay, listen to me. Enjoy your ride home because it will be your first and last one. I won't leave you here to make sure you go home safe, only out of respect for your boyfriend, but after that, you can find your own way to and from the bar and the club. And after that, we all got into the car, and the ride home was very quiet. Fast forward to this weekend, and in the group chat, we are all planning a night out, and this would be the first one since the incident. Well, Marie had just joined the group chat, and she actually asked me for my address and gave me hers, also that I could drive her home. But I just reminded her of what happened a few weeks ago, that I was serious, and that I wouldn't drive her home, and that I don't want her at my place at the moment. Well, she called me petty and a jerk before leaving the group chat, and now the friend group is divided. Anthony said he's gonna stay out of it, while Julie and Laura don't agree if Marie is right or not. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. This lady literally called you a weirdo for having stuff ready for your friends. Like, she has no respect for you or your dedication to take care of your friends, and she heavily tried to imply that you're being a weirdo for having any of the stuff in your car. Because you know what? It sounded like you guys had a really good system set up, and she has completely spoiled it for everybody involved. Not to mention the fact that she behaved horribly and disrespected you as a person. So you're definitely not the jerk, but the fact that Laura, Anthony, and Julie are silent in this scenario is just insane in my opinion. Like, how can Anthony ever be like, oh, I'm just gonna stay out of this? Like, no dude, you're definitely involved now. Your girlfriend just swore at this guy and made him feel like absolute garbage for being there for his friends. And then we've got Julie and Laura just sitting there like, oh, I don't know what to think. But it's like, are you kidding me right now? This should be easy to take the original poster's side and be like, yeah, we're gonna stand with you. And I totally get that people might be trying to spare feelings when it comes to Anthony, but Marie was acting completely out of line. And that is not something that you should ever put up with in the slightest. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would never give Marie a ride ever again. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that he's crazy if he thinks that I'm going to his house during the week just to make food for his stepkids? Because right now he is trying to make me feel guilty about my decision. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my parents are divorced. I'm a 16-year-old male, and I now live with my mom, and I visit my dad every weekend. The change happened about a year ago, and the judge won't let me stop going on those weekends, but I wish that I could. I have a younger brother who's 14 and a younger sister who's 11. My dad's married, and he has a stepson who's 10 years old and a stepdaughter who's 7. He asked me a couple of weeks ago to come to his house after school and make food for them before going home. He asked this because he found out that I sometimes make food for my siblings when my mom works. He asked me about it the next weekend I was over there, and he wanted to know why I never did that at his house. But I just said that I didn't. He told me that I could have made food for all 4 of the kids, but I told him no, that wasn't happening. He asked me why, and I said because I don't mind making something for me and my siblings, but I'm not making food for just anyone. Well, he told me that his stepkids are my siblings too, just not by blood, and I told him they're not my siblings and I never said they were. Then, 2 weeks ago, he asked to go cook for his stepkids after school, and this is during weeks where my siblings are home with me and mom, and weeks when they're with him. Well, I told him no, and as a result, he made that weekend incredibly annoying. Eventually, my mom told him to leave me alone. I am just a kid, and I already choose not to keep the 50-50 custody, so he should want to cherish the time that he has with me. But he responded by telling my mom to shut up. Well, I didn't do what he asked. He then mentioned it to me on Sunday, and that's when I told him he's crazy if he thinks I'm going to his house for the week just to make food for his stepkids. He then told me if I can do it for my siblings, I can do it for them. But I told him I love my siblings. That's why I do it. Then it was like he focused on me calling him crazy, and he said it's not crazy to expect family to treat each other the same, and how I'm showing blatant favoritism for my blood siblings and not my siblings through marriage. He told me it's cruel to be so blunt about it. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I do not think you're the jerk at all, because the way your dad is acting is really irrational. It really does seem like he's trying to force all of this on your plate instead of stepping up himself and doing what he needs to do as a dad. Like, the original poster is only 16 years old. Why are they responsible for their step siblings getting any kind of food? Like, is your dad trying to force you to have some kind of relationship with them? Because it really sounds like you don't want that. And And sure, you are related to them by marriage or whatever your dad's trying to spout off, but that doesn't mean that he can force that down your throat, because right now it kind of seems like that's what he's trying to do. And that, in my opinion, is truly unfair for him to do. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for turning him down and saying, no, I'm not gonna do this. Because the way he's trying to spin this on you, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate, and he has no reason to treat you like that in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.